Hello, Logan here from Dimp Digital, bringing you a review. This time round, I've got apps with me, and we are talking Minecraft Story Mode Season 2. Apps, how you doing?
Good, thanks. Yourself?
Back in the driving seat. What nobody wants or asks for, but is necessary.
Well, with this particular game, I thought, you've played the first season at least, so you have a handle on what may have occurred beforehand, and can sometimes lead to some interesting conversations that are going off on tangents, but that's what we're here for.
Yeah, we were talking off air, and we were saying I quite liked season 1, and somehow this has just fallen off my radar. So, it'd be interesting to hear from you whether it's worth me picking up or not. So I guess let's get into it. So I think we've been down this road before, but just in case anyone hasn't picked up a Dimp Digital review, what is your history with the wonderful, or they're quite popular in the Dimp group, but with Telltale?
Well, they're dead now. That's the first. This is the first review of their game since they died.
That's a sickener, really.
It is. Rustling. It is, but it just shows how they must have been so badly managed. You think about all the different licenses they had, like Batman, Tales from the Borderlands, The Walking Dead, Guardians of the Galaxy, Minecraft. Like, these should be. I don't know what they were doing. They've blown that, haven't they? To have all those licenses to have a go at and have a stab at, and seemingly, review reasonably well, and then they've chucked it. But there's no. They're going to finish off the final season of The Walking Dead. Or they're not. Skybound Games are kind of taking that over. I think they're using people from Telltale who'd lost their jobs to help finish that. So that's coming to a conclusion, but that'll be it after this. But Telltale themselves, I mean, in their heyday, they were producing some excellent games. My personal favourite was The Walking Dead, the first season. That's what really put me onto them as a developer. And they've used that same formula throughout most of their titles, and it got a little bit hit and miss. We talk about Tales from the Borderlands, which is something I know you really enjoyed, even saying that was one of the best games perhaps you'd ever played. That was a comment I remember floating through.
Yeah, I still stand by that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game in terms of its story and its humour and even some of the action pieces. So they go from the highs of like a Walking Dead and a Tales from the Borderlands to something like, again, that you played, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And you just think, right, where's this inconsistency coming from?
I think it's worth us paying a little bit of a homage, if you like, to Telltale on this podcast, this review, because I think it's worthwhile spending a couple of minutes on it. But I think you're right to point that out, and everything. I always found some of the series where you think that will be good for the way that they build their games, i.e. the story progression and story arcs and whatnot. Yeah. You think that will work really well, and there's some others where you go, not quite sure how that's going to fit in, and it surprises you. And I think after playing some of their previous games, I think I played season 1 of The Walking Dead, and I'd already done Borderlands, and I went Game of Thrones, one of my favourite TV series, with one of my favourite or in the moment game developers. I thought this was a match made in heaven, and they just got it catastrophically wrong in that for me. But generally everything I've played for them is always playable. It's always not perfect. I think that's worth adding. I don't think there's any game that I've picked up where I've gone, there's always a bug or something in it, but the story in it is so good that it covers for all of that. I think it'd always been interesting to see their balance sheet, because you make the point that they weren't selling £40 games.
No,
and the licenses they got were, I suspect, quite dear. And I don't know how much in royalties they had to pay and all that kind of stuff.
Something's gone wrong somewhere. Alan
ain't been doing the numbers.
No, he's had to just kick up and walk out of that, hasn't he? Yeah.
And they I don't think they kind of moved it along. I think it's sat on that engine, and that can only last for so long. You need to move things on a bit in some way. You need to keep progressing, and I think perhaps they were a little bit guilty of not doing that. But that's my 2 pence worth.
Yeah, I think also they kind of got a stigma attached to them. Like, like they weren't proper games from like some areas of the community. So he's always had those people that were saying, well, I'm never going to play a Telltale game because there's no gameplay in it. And it's like, well, there is. It's minor, obviously, but a video game can be anything. It doesn't have to be like in Spider-Man where you're shooting webs out your hand. It can be a story-based interactive experience, and that's always been my stand.
When you break it down to the basics, and again, we won't spend too much time in this, but what is a video game? It really, to all intents and purposes, it is an interactive experience of some description where you have an effect. You're either playing through a story or you're playing out your version of that.
Yeah.
In most cases.
Yeah, and
Telltale fits in with that.
Yeah, absolutely does. It definitely meets that criteria. I think just because 80% of games, there's some sort of killing involved, isn't there? You're either hacking someone in half with an axe, or you're shooting them with a gun, or you're doing something else. Like, it's always some sort of violence or combat. And for some reason, as gamers, we've kind of got focused on that you have to have that level of interactivity. Which is why I like to play games like the Telltale games, like the Life is Strange's, and just sort of take a step back. Detroit Become Human, that's like a PlayStation 4 exclusive that released last year, and just play something a little bit different and show that the medium can offer different avenues. You haven't got to just be systematically murdering people to enjoy a video game. It's bloody fun in GTA and Red Dead to do that sort of stuff, but not every game has to do that. And I think in the past, these type of games have been unfairly knocked. Same with the walking simulators, isn't it? They're in that same category where they've been slagged off by areas of the game, and all they want to do is run around and shoot people. And it's like, well, if that's your jam, that's your jam. But don't crap on these other little genres that are trying to do something different with the medium, because that's in the long term, that's how gaming can move on and do more interesting things, is taking these experiments and taking these plunges on different types of games. Yeah,
I completely agree. It's diversity. And giving people the choice to play different things. And I'm with you. I like to play things that give me a change of pace. And the Telltale games certainly do that. They're not as stressful. Well, they can be, but generally they're not a stressful experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes those decisions can be. And I just quite like playing a story and developing it my way. And that's what they've done very well. So I think both you and I would agree we're going to miss them. It'd be good to see them pop up, if possible, at some point. As a different iteration. I don't know how feasible that'll ever be, but
no, I would imagine there will be at some point in the future a new indie studio that's formed, and it'll be like, from people who brought you Telltale's this, and there'll be like I think there will be that ideology and those people who want to stick together and try and do like their own version of things. I can see that being used as part of some sort of marketing material, like from the creators of The Walking Dead, whatever it is, and because they've made their stamp. Like the 2012 The Walking Dead one Game of the Year, I think it's called the VGAs back then, and that kind of put them on the map. And ever since then, they've been part of gaming folklore. Now, sadly, towards the back end of 2018, it all crumbled, and Alan walked away with his £1 million and moved on to the next job. Fucking hatchet merchant he is.
Obviously, Alan is a fictional character, but
he is. He's at every game studio causing problems for us.
There he is, the well-known Dimp Alan favourite.
Double L.
So let's move on to what we're here to discuss: Minecraft Story Mode Season 2. Obviously, I'm pretty sure on these reviews we're strictly no spoilers, and that's difficult with the Telltale stuff. But if you want to give us a rundown of the story and where it fits in.
Yeah, so obviously Season 1 ended up being an 8-episode jobby. So I remember they released an extra 3 episodes, which were pretty standalone. So I played through the first season and then the added bits. I played through all 8 of those episodes, and you take control of this chap named Jesse. Or it can be a female. You can choose that at the beginning, and they kind of him and his friends form this kind of hero squad. Basically, I think they're called the Order of the Stone, and they basically go out exploring, bringing back new treasures that are all linked to the Minecraft world, and go on these exciting adventures. Season 2 picks up after Season 1. It seems like a fair amount of time has passed because the heroes or the squad, everyone's kind of getting pulled in different directions. So people they're not going out as much as exploring and adventuring. And it's a tale of as you're growing up almost, when people start having kids and all that garbage, sometimes people drift apart. And that's kind of one of the themes of season 2 is that Jesse and a couple of the others still want to explore, but the other part of the group kind of like, well, we've got to go and do this now, we've got responsibilities, all this stuff. So that's the sort of theme it's set around. And as usual in some sort of Telltale game, and especially in a Minecraft area, there is some form of threat that appears during the early episodes, and that's the kind of... what we're looking to solve is to get rid of that negative presence that's appeared, early in sort of season 2, episode 1. So without going further on it, that's essentially the theme of it. And then what you're looking to do is get rid of the bad guys and see where everyone else ends up at the end of it.
Yeah, so it's kind of a similar formula by the sounds of it to season 1. Really, it's just kind of continuation of that.
Yeah, and in this case, like a few of the characters that you meet in season 1 aren't as, there's not as much screen time from here, but there's new characters kind of brought in. And so they play on that fact that some people don't have the time to go out adventuring anymore, so they're not really in it too much, but it's the same sort of structure though. They've got your 5 episodes kind of all linking into each other. Some of the choices carry over, and you get to a conclusion, hopefully, that you're satisfied with.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds pretty as expected.
Yeah.
So, presentation and performance of this game. I suspect we're looking at God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2 style.
That 4K,
and that 4K
that really brings Minecraft story mode to life. Having 4K and a PlayStation 4 Pro on Xbox One X, it's really that good looking. Obviously not. I mean, the advantage with this particular license or this theme is that Minecraft never looked good. So there's kind of an excuse here, isn't there? Like they stay faithful to the aesthetic of Minecraft, i.e. blocky, low-res textures. So in terms of presentation, you can't really knock them. They're just following on what the game's source material is. And in all honesty, they do a really good job at staying faithful to that. So can't knock that. Performance-wise, I mean... it's pretty good, actually, in all honesty. They didn't have any crashes, which I definitely had issues with when I played Batman, like constantly crashing. There's not enough action, really, in it to say, well, them frames are dropping. Overall, it's a solid performance on that front. So presentation, I think, is done well because it's faithful to the source material, and performance-wise, not really anything, no negative issues, just a pretty bog-standard Telltale engine at work.
Kind of does what it does, really.
Yeah.
And I guess when you get these games, you're not getting them for beautiful graphics or slick performance and frames. It's kind of a byproduct of the story, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess that kind of pushes us into how the game's designed. Again, if you're familiar with the Telltale system, you probably know that already, but is there any curveballs in there in terms of what we should expect?
Not really. Same sort of format, like dialogue choices, quick time events, bit of exploring. One thing they did address, and this was something I think you brought up when we was talking about the first season, was you saying, well, it's Minecraft, but you don't actually build anything. Like, you could choose could choose a layout or something, but I think all you have to do is tap X and it'll build it for you, and it'll look all nice. And in this one, in season 2, in each episode, there is at least one opportunity for you to actually build something on like a grid. So you can build like a little structure or a memorial, whatever it might be. You can go in and do that. So you're given the opportunity to customize and build stuff. It's a pain in the arse to do. It's kind of like, I see why you introduced it, because those that like Minecraft probably are quite creative and want to build their own bits and pieces, and that opens that door. But it's a real pain in the arse to do. So I ended up building some right old toot, because I weren't having the time to be standing there building shit. So it's a bit of a it's there, but perhaps
it's a token gesture by the sound of it.
Yeah, and like zaps a little bit of the momentum out of it, but because I spent so little time on it, I was like, I'm not here for that. So I just built garbage and then agreed it, and they was all like, oh yeah, it looks really nice. I was like, it looks like shit, because I'll literally just put blocks of like lines up with like 3 different clay colours, and that's it. Like that. And they go, "No, that's really good, Jesse." I'm like, "That's trash." But
Master Builder.
yeah, but you can use this. You've got enough blocks there to probably do something interesting. But I just think the interface for that is just a pain in the arse. It's not very intuitive. So even if I did want to spend time doing it, I thought, not going to bother.
Yeah, that's kind of disappointing. I think I kind of expected in Minecraft Story Mode there'd always be. It would still feel like Minecraft, but in my experience in the first one, it was very much a Telltale game that was the art design of Minecraft, and that was the be all and end all of it, really.
Yeah.
So by the sounds of it, it's kind of more of the same in that respect.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads us on really to how does the gameplay work? And again, it's probably very similar to any other Telltale game.
Yeah.
It's not groundbreaking on that respect, I should imagine.
No. The formula is the same. So dialogue choices and whatnot are the main kind of content that you'll be working through. No real new tricks up their sleeve here in terms of how you control or what the mechanics are, which is not surprising. I mean, funnily enough, this season actually released in 2017, so it was actually it's quite old when you look at when it finished. I think it was the late part of 2017.
Yeah.
So it's over a year old now, but it's still in that old Telltale formula, and not surprising that there's no real changes to it. It's a bit of an older game from them. If we look at something like the final season of The Walking Dead, which I have been playing through, they've changed it a little bit. I won't go into detail of it, but there are elements of almost like real-time combat in that, and I'll obviously save that for when that's finished to explain some of the changes they did finally make. But Season 2 Minecraft Story Mode, same thing. So if you hate that, don't expect to get anything new. If you like it, happy days for you.
BAU by the sounds of it in terms of most of what we'd expect from Telltale, which isn't a criticism. It's just their formula.
That's it.
So I guess is there anything else that you would probably bring up that's relevant to this game? I think we both know it's very story driven. I don't think there's anything else that would really pull into a review of this game. It always boils down to how good and how heartbreaking those decisions are.
Yeah, and my motivation for playing this was awful. Like, I've had it probably 6-9 months, and I just couldn't be bothered to play. I don't know my interest in this, because I look back at the season 1 review I did, and I gave that a fucking silver. I couldn't believe it. Like, that's like an 8 out of 10 these days.
Yeah.
I was thinking, Christ, that's
seems higher to me, but I won't.
That was higher.
Yeah.
No, I mean, looking back, I was a bit shocked because I had some criticisms of it as well. I felt like the season was too long for what it was. There's
I know why it got that.
There was a very emotional moment in that, and it still turns my guts thinking about it today. And that probably did help, because I thought, how can that happen in a Minecraft game, to have that effect? The problem with Season 2 is, A, I wasn't that motivated to play it, because I've not really seen much to pull me in, and B, those moments don't exist in Season 2. So you have a couple of tricky decisions to make, but the stakes are super low. Like, you kind of it plays more into the family friendly side of things than what Season 1 did, meaning that there's not a lot of stuff that you're going to be able to do wrong in this game potentially, and have that emotional moment. So it suffered, in my view. When I finished it, I was a bit like, didn't struggle that much with making some of these decisions, and the smoke and mirror game was well and truly sort of on show here, and I could see right through it, which is not where you want to be for a Telltale game. You want to have that smoke and mirrors to kind of give you the illusion that you've just done something terrible potentially, but leans right into the family friendly side of things. You don't really have that option, or that troubled choice to make, and it's a bit like, right, what have I done here?
I think that's a good point. What Telltale historically for me, and where I feel like their games are better / conversely to ones that I think are worse, is where the storyline makes me care for the character, or to have an affinity for a certain character or a desire for a certain outcome. And when it doesn't go the way that you want it to, or there is a curveball thrown in, then, as you say, you get that heartbreak or that elation, which plays like any good film does. And it's almost the comparisons with watching a film are there, but it's still, it needs to pull at your heartstrings, or it needs to make you care about the characters. And some of their games are better at doing that than others, and that does come through, as you've referred to, the high/low stakes that are involved. And without those moments, I think, because of the lack of amazing gameplay, immersiveness, you do rely on those for it to come out and be classed as you did for Minecraft Season 1, a silver. But I guess that kind of leads us into the closing thoughts and the official Dimp verdict. Where do you see this one sitting then? I mean, ultimately, I guess, do you see it on a par with the previous one? Better, in which we're looking up at the golds, or does it, by the sounds of it, fall a little bit below that into the bronze or below?
Yeah, it's nowhere near silver material, so that's out the window for it completely. I can't even give it a bronze material. I wouldn't. That seal of approval has to mean something. I don't think Minecraft Story Mode Season 2 is that something. So then it's a question of how low do you go? It's plus points. It's very faithful to like the Minecraft world, and if you are a Minecraft nut, there's loads of Easter eggs in here, and they're very, very faithful to that. Its setting and its vibe and its atmosphere, I don't think makes for a good Telltale game, because it was just too low stakes and didn't really have me hooked or worried. Struggling to kind of give it even a 6 at this rate. It's sliding a little bit, and I think back to it and I've forgotten even what's pretty much happened in the end. I don't know what the outcome of the characters were. It's just not a very memorable. I know you played it last week. Like, we're not talking it's weekend, in fact. We're talking 5 days removed, and already there's other games that I've played well before that I'm thinking about. So for that reason, it's an average Telltale game, comes in at 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think this is part of the problem with Telltale, and we won't spend a whole load of time on this, but you've got to say that they're good games, or let's phrase it in a different way. One of their more disappointing or average games were few and far between years ago, and you kind of get the feeling that as time's gone on, they've produced more of the average games than they have of the, impressive or heartbreaking games. And perhaps that's part of the problem, is that they've lost that edge that they had.
I mean, it's a strange one, and this itself was, it was, I bought it and then didn't play it for over a year, or a year probably. So you kind of look at that, and already that the interest in this probably wasn't as high as it is for other stuff. I don't. And the weird thing was, I quite enjoyed the first season, so I don't know whether just over since sort of 2016, which is when the final episodes of the first season ended, until now, whether my tastes have changed or just I've had better Telltale experiences. I don't know. I just feel like the subject matter for this wasn't that great, and the stakes were too low. And at that stage, you've kind of got a bit of a problem if you're a Telltale game. It's still it's still playable. It's not broken or anything like that. And if you like the formula, there's redeeming bits and pieces in it. But as an overall package, just a little bit like, it's okay. It's average. It's not going to blow the world. I wouldn't recommend everyone go out and buy it unless you're a Minecraft nut, or unless you really love Telltale games and that style of game. There are far better series out there for you to play if you've not played them all. So I would start with those first, and then perhaps leave us to the back end.
I think perhaps it's, I think they dragged on season 1 too long. From memory,
it weren't 5 episodes, was it? It was like, exactly. For me, it felt like 3 and a bit episodes. Because from my memory of season 1 is like the main story is almost like wrapped up by the end of episode 4.
Yeah.
And you've already got one filler episode between that, and I was like, right. So the last episode is just sort of this little standalone package, and it was really strange. Whereas this, they managed to stretch out the season through 5 episodes, and it's just like, yeah, it's all right. But
I always got the feeling that they'd got an idea that they wanted to do this, but they never really got a story for it. And look, Minecraft is a sandbox game. It's very difficult to come up with a serviceable story for that, whereas everything else generally from memory that they've adapted has already had a story and a lore that you're part of. And I think that was always the trouble for it, is that they're always going to need a super idea of a story to match with the lore of Minecraft for it to be a super series, for want of a better term. And I don't ever feel like they really got that. I think, as you say, there was a couple of good episodes in season 1, but I always got the feeling like it was stretched out, and I think I kind of remembered that, and that's why I sort of went, can take or leave season 2. I'm not that bothered, and it just dropped off the radar, evidently, and that's probably partly why you struggled to have that motivation. But
yeah, I was definitely must have been more lenient back then, giving that a silver.
The world's changed, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, even in the last sort of 2-3 years, you kind of your taste change and whatnot, and this was just. I mean, the laughable thing about season 1 is I think you can now. Don't know what regions it's in, but you can play that on Netflix.
Yeah, an adapted version, albeit. But
but you can get that story. So maybe that's the best way to play these Minecraft story modes is on Netflix. If they do a season 2 adaptation, probably takes a little bit of the effort out, and you can just sort of consume it. But yeah, it's a bit of a bitter end for season
sobering
2.
end.
Yeah. Maybe I left it too long to play it, and I just sort of wasn't interested, and that cost it. But there's just other more interesting games that had come out. Like The Walking Dead had another between season 1 and season 2. They had the Batman series had kicked off. They had a new Walking Dead season, Guardians of the Galaxy. That was all just in between. Straight after we had Batman season 2, which I was much more interested to play, and then they were telling me about the final season of The Walking Dead. So they were always going to take priority, and then got back round to this and thought, well, that'll learn you. That's not gonna make a mark, and it'll be forgotten about in my mind pretty quickly.
So the lesson to that is focus on one project at a time, really.
Yeah, I think that doesn't. I think my problem was that I wanted to play everything Telltale throughout.
Yeah,
and that doesn't help them, does it? When I'm like, well, I've played every single one of your games, some of them twice, and now this is not as good. They get a bit of a rough deal with it, but I enjoyed the formula for what it was, and I think I don't think they could have done another year's worth of all this. I think it dying off towards the back end of 2018 is a natural kind of death for the games, because they had run their course, and it really did all hinge on story and that area, and that's not a place you want to be when trying to write for some of these licenses is very tricky. I've enjoyed what I've played of the final season of The Walking Dead, so that will probably just carry it through, and it's the culmination of 4 seasons, I think, of the Clementine character. And since season 1 she's been a little girl, and now she's grown up. It's like that will have a lot more emotional weight behind it, so I can see that faring a lot better than what season 2 of Minecraft story mode did.
Yeah, well, there you go. All good things have to come to an end.
Yep.
As does this review.
Indeed.
So once again, Apps, thanks for your input and opinion. Bit of a sobering end to this one, but thanks for your time, and ta-da.